Hi friends, and welcome to Folklore Diaries. Here, we share real-life horror stories and chilling legends from around the world. Some of them happen to our listeners, others have been passed down for years. So get comfortable but stay alert, because the next story might just keep you awake tonight. And if you like true horror stories, consider subscribing. Okay, let's begin. The city of Beijing never really sleeps. Even past midnight, the wide avenues glow with yellow streetlights, and the sound of motorbikes and late taxis echoes between tall apartment blocks. But in the dark corners, where the light does not reach, old stories whisper like shadows. One of those stories was about a bus. Not just any bus, Bus 375. People said it ran only at midnight, leaving from a lonely bus stop on the edge of the city. Nobody knew its final stop. Nobody ever saw it arrive in the morning. And yet, sometimes people swore they saw it driving silently through the streets, headlights pale and ghostly, as if it did not belong to this world. The legend always ended the same way. Those who board the midnight bus never come back. Most laughed at it, calling it nothing but a city ghost tale told by taxi drivers to scare tourists. But some older residents shook their heads and whispered, "It is not a joke. The bus belongs to the dead." That night, Li Mei, a 21-year-old university student, stood at the bus stop, hugging her backpack tightly. She had stayed too late in the library, working on her research paper, and missed the last regular bus home. The streets were almost empty now. Cold autumn wind brushed across her face, carrying the smell of dust and gasoline. She checked her phone, 12:03 a.m. "No buses after midnight," she muttered, feeling a chill. But then she noticed something strange. On the timetable, faded but still visible, was a listing. Bus 375, midnight departure. Her heart skipped. She remembered her roommate telling her the story. If you ever see Bus 375 after midnight, don't get on it. People vanish. It's cursed. Li Mei bit her lip. She lived far across the city, and a taxi would cost money she didn't have. Walking wasn't safe either. So when she saw faint headlights glowing in the distance, drawing closer along the empty street, she forced herself to stay still. The sound of the engine was heavy old. The bus stopped in front of her with a hiss, doors opening with a slow metallic creak. It looked like any other city bus, green and white, scratched from years of service. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered weakly. The driver wore a navy uniform and cap, head bowed. He didn't look at her, only muttered, "Get in." Li Mei hesitated. Her chest tightened. The story came rushing back. But the night was cold, and she was tired. It's just a bus. Stories are just stories. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. Only a handful of passengers sat scattered across the seats. An old woman with a shopping bag. A couple whispering to each other. A young man staring out the window. And in the very back, a grumpy-looking old man with messy gray hair, muttering to himself. The doors closed behind her with a metallic thud. The bus rolled forward into the dark streets. And as the city lights grew fewer, Li Mei had the sudden, terrible feeling that she had made a mistake. The bus moved slowly through the wide, empty avenue. From outside, the world looked abandoned, shops shuttered, traffic lights blinking over roads with no cars. The only sound was the steady growl of the old engine and the faint rattling of loose windows. That Li Mei sat near the middle, clutching her backpack tightly on her lap. Her eyes moved from passenger to passenger, searching for comfort in their presence. But something about them felt off. The old woman sat by the front, her wrinkled hands gripping a plastic shopping bag so tightly it crinkled every time the bus jolted. She never looked around, never blinked, just stared at the floor. The young couple, maybe in their 20s, whispered softly to each other, their faces pale in the weak light. The girl leaned against the boy's shoulder, but neither of them smiled. Their whispers weren't the sweet kind, more like nervous muttering. The young man by the window was handsome, dressed in a sharp black jacket, but he sat unnaturally still, eyes fixed on the passing darkness as if hypnotized. His reflection in the glass seemed strange, blurred, almost too dim, though the bus light was bright above him. And then there was the old man at the back. His hair was wild, his jacket torn. He muttered under his breath like he was arguing with someone who wasn't there. Sometimes he slapped the empty seat beside him as if scolding it. May shivered. She tried to distract herself by looking at her phone, but the screen showed no signal. Not even a single bar. The driver said nothing, never turned his head. His cap brim shadowed his face, hands steady on the wheel. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered again, buzzing like dying insects. Minutes passed. The streets outside grew narrower, darker. She didn't recognize the route. The bus was moving farther away from the city center, into the older, quieter parts of Beijing where tall buildings gave way to narrow alleys and long stretches of farmland. "Excuse me," Li Mei called softly, leaning toward the driver. "Does this bus go to Haidian District?" The driver didn't answer. His head twitched slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on the road. The old woman near the front raised her head. Her eyes were clouded, milky as if blind. She smiled faintly at Li Mei and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Li Mei froze. What?" The woman said nothing more. She went back to staring at the floor, knuckles white around her shopping bag. The bus suddenly jolted to a stop. The air brakes hissed like a sharp breath. The doors opened out on the empty road. Two tall men stood waiting. They were carrying something long and heavy wrapped in a dark sheet, dragging it between them. Without a word, they stepped onto the bus, the object thumping against the stairs. They didn't pay the fare. The driver didn't look at them. The doors closed. The two men walked slowly down the aisle, their heads bowed, faces hidden under long black hats. The thing they carried bumped against the seats. It was shaped like a body. Li Mei's throat went dry. Her hands trembled around her backpack. The two men placed their heavy bundle across the seats in the back corner, then sat down silently beside it. They did not move again. The old man who had been muttering stopped suddenly. His eyes darted toward them, wide with fear. He shook his head violently, whispering under his breath, not them again." The bus engine roared, and they moved deeper into the night. And for the first time, Li Mei felt that maybe she was no longer in the Beijing she knew. The bus rattled on, its tires grinding over cracked asphalt as if the road beneath was falling apart. Li Mei pressed herself tighter into her seat, trying not to look at the bundle the two men had dragged inside. It rested across two seats, the sheet pulled tight around it. The shape was unmistakable, long, human, with a sharp rise where the chest should be and a slope where the head lay. The sheet was stained in places, dark blotches that looked almost black in the flickering light. The men themselves were even stranger. Both wore identical long coats and wide-brimmed hats that hid their faces in shadow. They did not speak. They did not move. They only sat with their hands resting on their knees, perfectly still, as though they weren't alive at all. The other passengers avoided looking at them. The couple huddled together, the girl burying her face into the boy's shoulder. The young man by the window had stopped watching the passing darkness. His eyes were now shut, lips moving in silent prayer. Li Mei's heart pounded. She wanted to get off, but the bus didn't stop. The driver kept his gaze fixed on the endless black road ahead, knuckles pale against the steering wheel. The bus seemed to be going faster now, too fast, yet the outside world barely changed. Just empty roads and long shadows that stretched like claws across the pavement. A faint smell drifted through the bus. Metallic, sharp, like rust or blood. Li Mei covered her nose, her stomach twisting. She glanced at the bundle again. The sheet had shifted. Only slightly, but enough. A pale, bony hand had slipped out. Her breath caught in her throat. She clamped her eyes shut, forcing herself not to scream. When she opened them again, the sheet was still, the hand gone. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe. The old man in the back suddenly stood up. His voice cracked as he shouted, "I won't ride with them. Not again." Everyone turned. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temples. His hands shook violently as he pointed at the two men. "They're not passengers. They're not even alive." The bus went silent. Even the engine seemed to grow quieter. The two men did not react. Their heads remained bowed. The old man staggered toward the front, clutching the rail. "Driver, stop the bus. Stop it now." But the driver didn't move. His hands gripped the wheel tighter, his cap shadowing his face. He seemed carved from stone. The old man turned to the passengers, desperation in his eyes. "Don't you see it? Can't you feel it? They're not from this world." No one answered. The couple stared down. The young man by the window covered his ears. The old woman clutched her bag tighter, whispering something under her breath. The bus kept rolling. Faster. Deeper into the darkness. Li Mei's skin crawled. She wanted to deny it, to tell herself this was only fear twisting her thoughts. But deep inside, she knew the old man was right. These new passengers did not belong here. And whatever was inside that sheet was not sleeping. Time lost its meaning. Minutes felt like hours as the bus roared endlessly through deserted streets that should not exist. The city was gone. Outside the window stretched only empty fields, twisted trees, and ruins of old houses that leaned like broken teeth under the moon, that Li gripped the seat so tightly her knuckles hurt. Every few seconds, she glanced at the bundle in the back. The sheet shifted when no one was watching. A faint rasping noise, like breathing, filled the air whenever the engine grew quiet. The old man sat near the front now, muttering to himself. His eyes darted constantly between the driver and the silent men. The young couple were crying softly. The girl whispered, "I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here." The boy squeezed her hand, but his face was ashen, his lips trembling. The old woman had closed her eyes. She rocked back and forth, chanting a prayer. Her shopping bag rustled with every movement, though she never opened it, and the young man by the window, he was no longer praying. He sat stiff and silent, eyes wide open now, staring straight at his own reflection in the glass. But his reflection didn't match him anymore. It smiled when he didn't. Li Mei's blood turned cold. She pressed her hands over her eyes, trembling. When she lowered them again, the reflection was normal. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the glass itself was watching her. Suddenly, the bus shuddered violently, as if something enormous had struck it from the outside. The lights flickered, buzzing loudly. For a moment, everything went black, and in that second of darkness, Li Mei swore she felt cold fingers brush the back of her neck. The lights snapped back on. Everyone was in the same place. Silent. Frozen. The old man's voice broke the silence. "They're feeding on us. Can't you feel it? The longer we ride, the weaker we get." Li Mei realized he was right. Her body felt heavy, her eyelids like stone. It was more than fear, it was like something was draining her, pulling the warmth out of her veins. The bundle in the back shifted again. This time, a sound escaped at a low, wet moan. The two men finally raised their heads. Their faces were gray, skin stretched thin over sharp bones. Their eyes were hollow, bottomless pits. And when they smiled, their teeth were too many, too sharp. The bus shook violently again, as if it were no longer on wheels but flying through empty space. Li Mei clutched her backpack tighter. She knew now. This wasn't a bus ride. It was a journey into the world of the dead. The bus rattled through a dark, endless road, the engine growling like a beast. Li Mei's head throbbed. Her body felt heavy, her mind foggy, as if the very air inside the bus was sucking the energy from her veins. The old man stood suddenly, shaking violently. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice cracking like dry wood. "This ride ends here." Li Mei flinched. The other passengers turned to watch him. The two men at the back remained eerily still, their hollow eyes now fixed on the old man. The bundle shifted again. A faint, wet sound echoed, like a whisper or a breath. "You don't understand," the old man barked. "If you stay, you'll vanish like the others. This bus, it doesn't take you home. It takes you to them." The couple clutched each other, eyes wide with terror. The young man by the window did not move, staring blankly ahead. Even the old woman opened her eyes, the first time since boarding, and muttered a warning in a voice barely audible. "They are not alive. They are hungry." The bus tilted slightly, throwing Li Mei against her seat. The lights flickered violently, casting shadows that danced across the walls. The driver's hands never left the wheel, but his head slowly turned, revealing a face that was pale, almost carved, eyes empty. The old man leaned closer to Li Mei. "Listen, you can still leave. You have to run. but you must get off now, before the bus reaches the bridge." Li Mei's stomach twisted. "The bridge?" "Yes," he snapped. "There's a bridge ahead. If we cross it, we are gone forever. The bus is not ours. It belongs to the dead, and they feed on the living. You must jump. Now." The young couple whispered urgently. "We can't, it's too high." But the old man's eyes blazed. "You have no choice. Trust me. If you wait, you die." The bus engine roared louder. The two men at the back slowly lifted the bundle. The wet moaning grew louder, more desperate, like a living heartbeat. Li Mei's heart raced. She scrambled toward the doors. "Please, let me off." The driver finally spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "No one leaves." But the old man stepped in front of her, pushing her toward the door. "You'll never survive if you hesitate. Jump before the bridge, before it's too late." The bus rounded a sharp curve. Through the window, Li Mei saw the faint outline of a bridge emerging over a river. The moon reflected off its steel frame, making it look taller than the city itself. The bus jolted violently, the two men at the back rising with the bundle, slowly turning toward her. Hollow eyes fixed on her, teeth glinting in the flickering light. "Now!" the old man screamed. Li Mei ran, threw herself toward the doors, and slammed them open. Cold night wind hit her like a hammer. She jumped. The bus lurched violently as if thrown by an invisible hand. She landed hard on the asphalt, pain shooting through her legs, but she didn't stop. She rolled, scrambled up, and ran toward the dark road behind her. From the corner of her eye, she saw the bus slow, but its lights glowed brighter than ever. The moaning inside grew louder. The two men at the back appeared at the windows, their hollow eyes fixed on her. And then, the bus accelerated, disappearing into the night like a ghost, leaving only silence and cold air behind. Li Mei collapsed, gasping, trembling. She thought she was safe. She thought she had escaped. But deep down, she knew the nightmare was far from over. The next morning, the city woke to shocking news. Bus 375 had vanished. The authorities could not find a single trace of it after it left the city limits. Surveillance cameras showed the bus entering the streets at midnight, but nothing after that. No tracks, no tire marks, no passengers. Li Mei tried to report what happened. She explained everything, the men, the bundle, the moaning, the old man's warning, but the police dismissed her story as exhaustion or hallucination. Her classmates were horrified but skeptical. "Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" they asked. Li Mei didn't answer. She knew what she saw. She couldn't shake the images from her mind. The hollow eyes, the moving bundle, the two men who weren't alive. Even her reflection in the mirror felt wrong sometimes, as if the bus had left a mark on her, a shadow she could not see but could feel. The old man? No one else had noticed him leaving the bus with her. He was gone, vanished into the night before the authorities arrived. Li Mei wondered, had he been real? Or had he been another part of the bus's strange, twisted reality? She never found out. Weeks passed. Li Mei tried to return to her normal life, but something in her had changed. She avoided buses, never walked alone at night, and had nightmares that replayed the bus over and over. Then, one rainy evening, she walked past the old bus stop where she had boarded the midnight bus. The wind carried a whisper, faint but unmistakable. "Do you remember me?" Li Mei froze. A figure emerged from the shadows. The old man. But his face was pale, his eyes hollow, and his mouth curved in a faint, knowing smile. "Why you saved me that night," Li Mei whispered, trembling. The old man chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Saved you? No, child. I didn't save anyone. I'm the reason you were there. I am part of the bus. I am part of them. You were never meant to leave alive." Li Mei's heart stopped. "But I jumped. I escaped." He shook his head slowly. "Jumping doesn't save you. Every soul who rides the midnight bus carries it with them forever. You are not free. You will never leave the bus. It's inside you now. You feel it, don't you? The hunger, the cold, the whispers." The wind howled. Li Mei's vision blurred. She turned to run, but the old man was gone. Only the faint smell of metal and dust lingered in the air. And that night, when Li Mei looked into the mirror before bed, she noticed something chilling. Her reflection smiled back at her, a little too wide, a little too sharp. And in the distance, faint headlights gleamed outside her window. Bus 375 was coming. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, not every shadow is empty, and not every voice in the dark is in your head. Good night, and stay safe.